We're going to rock and roll. So we're going to start on all fours for quite a few of them. We'll stay on the ground. I'm going to start with joint mobility. So remember when we're doing joint mobility, we go really slow. So we're not going to rush through it. We're going to be on all fours. We're going to start with hip mobility. So think about the ball and socket joint. What I'm going to do is try to keep my lumbar tucked at the floor. I'm not going to let my hips pull up, my lower back pull up when I lift my hip. I'm going to pull from the knee laterally out as far as I can, and then create a big circle with my knee. Back down to the center of my body, pulling laterally again as high as I can, dragging that knee into the biggest circle I can make without getting my lower back into it, and completing the circle back to start. This is hip mobility, so we're gonna go slow. We're gonna go for 5 each side. You should feel your glute muscle and hip muscle helping you along the way. I'm hoping you're not getting any cracking in your hips, but if you do, not a big deal as long as it's not painful, right? Good. Breathing through, pressing through my hands to help stabilize me. We're gonna switch sides. I'm gonna turn this way just to have a little bit different view for you. I'm gonna go for my right hip now. I'm gonna pull through the right knee out, big circles up and around. Definitely welcome to do more than 5, since I spend a lot more time talking. Pulling that hip, you're feeling that glute warm up, those hip muscles warm up, and taking the joint through its greatest range of motion. Awesome. Should feel really good. We're gonna do the same thing for the shoulder, also a ball and socket joint. I'm gonna make a fist with a working arm. I'm going to elevate it forward, keeping an elbow straight as high as I can. When I get to that max height, I'm going to turn it out to once again try to create the biggest circle as I can, back down and around to start. So palm starts facing my other hand, pull up to the sky, turn that palm out when you feel it's essential, and bring it back to start. We're going to do 5 forward, pulling for number 3, slow and controlled. Really challenging the range of motion on that shoulder joint, creating some external rotation, which is just a big word for saying that you're able to open your shoulders. Good, last one. Awesome, let's switch sides. So I'm gonna relax my left hand back down on the floor. I'll show you this way again. I'm going to palm in, making a fist, raise that arm as high as I can, all the way around, back to start, keeping that elbow as straight as I can the whole time. The second we release the elbow and let it bend, the movement goes into the bicep and the tricep. We're really trying to isolate the shoulder, stretch out the joint, give that ball and socket capsule a little bit more space. Good, last one. Perfect, should feel really good on those shoulders, hips are warming up. We're gonna go into spinal mobility, right? So cat and cow, I'm gonna keep my eyes at the floor. I'm gonna inhale and start to tuck my spine, bringing my belly button in, pushing my hands through the ground, trying to get my spine into the biggest curvature I can create. Pressing my hands away from the earth will really help me, and pulling myself into a strong pelvic tilt. As I exhale, I'm gonna slowly reverse it. Dropping my belly button to the floor, looking up at the sky, pushing my hips away from me, really trying to, once again, get that spine into the greatest arch that I can create. We're gonna go for 5 of them, nice and slow. Let's inhale, pull that spine up, belly button in, pressing through the floor. Exhale slowly, reversing the process. Looking up, dropping that belly, not sucking the belly in. Let that belly hang down as much as it can. And go for number 4. Hopefully feeling better each rep. Getting all those little kinks out. Last one coming. Beautiful. All right, now that we're a little warmer, I'm going to challenge this a little bit in a plank to elevated down, an elevated plank to child's pose. So what we're going to do is hands directly under my shoulders. That's really important when you're in a plank. Make sure they're not ahead of you. I'm going to dig my toes into my mat, Now, and this is the plank, now I'm gonna bend my knees, push my hips back through the hole, but I'm not putting my knees down, coming back up into that plank, right? Pushing myself away from my hands, pushing my butt into my heels, but not touching my knees. I'll show you both directions. Let's go for 10 of them. Inhale, exhale. I'm gonna show you the other way in case we're not following. Hands directly under, toes dug in, grip the floor, push my hips back through that hole, rock forward, load my shoulders again. Inhale, exhale, right? You should feel a lot of hip work, a lot of quad work, especially when you're back here. Those quads are really working. Warming us up, making our core work. Hopefully that feels good and we're capable of that one. That was definitely a tough one. All right, let's go into a good stretch after that. So scorpions, we're gonna be face down on our mat, arms wide out on either side, and we're gonna really mobilize our low back and hips. This is a challenging movement, so go slow with it, and there's regressions that I'll show you. So what we're gonna do is press our hands down out wide. I'm gonna relax, you guys already can relax your heads. I'm gonna pick up my left foot and try to touch it over by my right hand, okay? So inhale, exhale as you pull. Right, and when I'm in this position, you don't roll open too, because this is what I'm looking for, is this mobilization, my spine mobile, my hips mobile, and if I release that hand, I won't get it as much. All right, so let's go other side. Reaching now my right toe towards my left hand, feeling that real good hip, low back stretch. We're gonna go for 3 each side. Inhale again, always do that exhale as you're pulling. Especially into a stretch that's kind of aggressive, like this one definitely is for most people. Breathing. Perfect. That's called the scorpion. I don't really know why, but it's called the scorpion. I like it a lot. Okay, so let's flip over and get our hamstrings and glutes and core going a little bit more. So we're gonna lay on our backs, feet dug into the ground. We're first gonna pelvic tilt, right? We've gone over pelvic tilting before, but let's go over it one more time. So if I casually push my hands under my lower back, I have a little bit of space, right? What you want to do is get rid of that space. So what you're going to do is pull your hips up towards your belly button, and that's going to create that flat back onto the floor. We're going to then tilt our toes up so our heels are dominant. Maintaining that pelvic tilt, I'm going to squeeze my butt and push my hips as high as we can. So inhale, exhale. Squeezing my abs down into the mat to begin for that pelvic tilt, and then really squeezing my butt, digging through my heels. You should feel a lot of glute work, butt work, right? The booty's getting some firing, the hamstrings, the back of the leg are activating, and then obviously with that pelvic tilt, I'm forcing my lower abdominals, my pelvic floor, to do the work and take the load off my lower back, right? This is a really great movement. If you're sitting in your chair and you feel like your lower back's really getting overused, jump on the floor, get some of these in. Firing those big muscle groups like the hamstrings and glutes will really help relieve the lower back. They kind of kick in and they're like, oh, we're supposed to be working, but we forgot. Just remind them. Awesome. So I try to get 20 of those when I do them. We're gonna go into some core work now. So dead bugs. I know we've done these before. We're once again gonna start in that pelvic tilt position. So I'm gonna tuck my lower back onto the floor. I'm gonna elevate both my knees so that they're in a 90 degree, okay? Feeling my lumbar staying compressed, I'm gonna put both my hands on my knees just for guidance purposes, okay? As I exhale, I'm going to release my left knee and my right hand away, so. So when I'm extending like that, it's putting a really big challenge on my pelvic floor and my pelvis structure itself, right? So I really have to fight for that pelvic tilt onto the ground, right? Let's try to get 10 each side, right? This is obviously not only great core work is probably what you're feeling, but it's also really good lumbar stability. So when we're talking about stretching and kind of like getting out of that habitual seated position, this is also, once again, just a great way to teach your body what it should be doing when it is sitting for long periods of time like that. Not overloading the lower back. Make the pelvis, core do the work, right? So inhale. You can alternate if you have the coordination for it, or you can stick with one side. Awesome. I hope you're able to get two. So we're going to go into a little bit of postural work. So we're going to stay laying on the floor, keeping that pelvis nice and tucked just for skill purpose. I'm going to lay my elbows on the ground, hands face up on the ground, creating a W, right? So we've done these before. I'm going to exhale and push my hands up into a Y. Imagine there is a wall over your face, which that makes me very claustrophobic to think about that. But imagine there's a wall and you can't elevate your hands. They have to stay on the ground, right? So it's going to look like this. Pressing for that Y, trying to keep all connection to the floor, right? You don't want to feel like you're like this up here. Keeping the pelvis down, right? Inhale. Exhale, push up into that Y. Really fight for the Y at the top. Walk out the elbow, right? Once again, remember that elbow is going to control where that work goes, bicep, tricep, or the shoulder and spine where we want it. Inhale down, exhale up. Take notice of whether or not your hands are maintaining connection. Sometimes what happens, you start to push up into that Y, your hand will start to cheat, and your actual top of your hand will come off, your fingers will stay down. So just take note of, hey, are my hands actually on the floor, or is it my fingers kind of cheating for me? That's just waking up those little back muscles, your lats, I shouldn't say lats or little back muscles, but your lats, your rhomboids, all the little stabilizers in the center of your back that should be supporting you when you're sitting all day long. All right, so a little bit of combination, core and stretching and shoulder mobility. Okay, so my legs are straight out on the floor. I'm doing my best to keep my quads engaged the whole time, right? Flexing my legs, arms are firmly at the sky. As I exhale coming up, I'm gonna push my head through the hole. So notice how my legs are staying straight, forcing a stretch on my hamstrings as I sit up into this straight position. Number two, I'm really obviously working my abdominals. That's what I'm feeling the most, but right here is where people lose it. They want to let their hands come forward. Keep the hands locked out, push the head through the hole, right? Not like this, like this. And I'm really mobilizing my shoulders and my thoracic spine. Your thoracic spine starts at your rib cage, and that's what allows you to rotate. A lot of people have poor rotation because they're really tight right here. So this is a really great movement to help get you mobile in that area, but also give you some good core work. Awesome. I would say maybe 10 to 15 if we're able. I'm too busy talking. Okay, we got two more. Let's go 90-90 leans. Let's get those hips a little bit more. So remember 90-90, I have that box laid out. My left knee's in front of my left hip, left foot's in front of my right hip, opposite behind. So now right foot's kind of in line with my butt. I'm going to twist towards the left leg, right? It's more accessible. I'm going to twist towards the left leg, which is the quad that's kind of in line with my hip, okay? And I'm going to walk my hands out on the floor and reach away, reach away. Not so bad, right? Getting some hip mobility, feeling my low back a little bit. When we come back up out of it, this is the harder one. Now I'm going to twist towards the right leg, hands on the ground and reach. Now this is where you're like, well, I just got stuck, right? Same thing, you're getting a little bit of lower back. I'm feeling more in my hip on this one, kind of pushing that ball into the socket itself, right? Breathing, we'll go a couple times each side. Reaching, the easier, and then the harder. People don't, and then let's go ahead and switch sides. People don't give credit enough to how tight hips can really lead to a lot of lower back pain. So it's always a good thing to address if you're having lower back and you can't figure out why. Okay, so now we've switched, right? So now the more accessible one. So now I'm reaching to my right. left. Once again, getting a little lower back, twisting back, reaching to my left. Harder. Now harder. Once again, I'm feeling it in that socket more now. I'm feeling it in that hip itself when I reach to that side. Breathing. Shouldn't be pain, right? The whole no pain, no gain. Not really something I'm cool with. All right, you guys, I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it was the best part of your day, so far at least.